Some stuff to be real about. I got some stuff to be raw about. I got a lot to get off my chest. And I got to be honest and open about some stuff. All that coming right up. Get ready for an epic journey into the heart of manhood with Manhood Unveiled. Join Zeth Lee as he guides you through the gripping tales of fatherhood, the resilient bonds of marriage, the roads of vulnerability, and overcoming temptation. Brace yourself for an odyssey of growth, connection, unwavering spirit, and faith. This is not just a podcast. This is Manhood Unveiled, where the story of manhood unfolds like never before. Hello, welcome into another episode of Manhood Unveiled. I'm your host, Zeth Lee, and today I got to be really vulnerable and really honest. That kind of sucks. Kind of scared. I got this just impending feeling of doom in here, but that's okay. I just got to accept it and embrace it. First and foremost, let me say I am sorry because I started really hard and really going on the podcast, and then I hit a slump, and it's been months since I've released anything, put anything out, and we'll get back to that. I would like to say right here at the beginning that yes, you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you find podcasts as well. You can also find it on YouTube, but today I'm doing something different. I'm actually recording it and going to put just the video of me, the talking head here, up in the podcast instead of just the podcast image. So check that out if you want to. I'll put a link, or I will try to put a link in the description of the podcast episode, wherever you listen to it at. So guys, I've had a lot of things just kind of eating at me over the past few months. A lot. It's not stuff that I'm proud of. It's I would say that I've been struggling, but I don't think struggling is a good word for it. I think when when you call it struggling, that's when you give in to letting the devil pull you down. But I've really just been questioning a lot of things. The main reason I just kind of fell off on the podcast was because I was questioning myself, like, who am I to be giving advice when I don't even have my stuff figured out yet? And I really, really questioned myself on that. And of course, I really beat myself down. I let the devil win, and I was like, you're not anybody to give advice. You got to figure out your life. Well, friends, I don't know. We're not perfect, and I don't know if I will ever have my life fully figured out. I'm trying, and that's all we can do, right? We can try, and we can realize our mistakes and our faults, and we can do better, and we can make every attempt to do better. But I let the devil win there, and I told myself, no, I don't need to do this podcast. Nobody needs to listen to me. I'm not one to give people advice. I'm not, and maybe I'm not. I'm not sitting here saying that my advice is perfect, because it by no means is, but it's the best advice that I have. And I go back to like the very first episode of Manhood Unveiled, and I'm not trying to guide somebody down the right path. I'm really just trying to tell my story and what's happened to me and what I've learned along the way, so that somebody in a similar circumstance or very close to it can, maybe pick something up from it or see what not to do, so that they don't end up like I did. And that's the goal, right? It's not for notoriety. It's not to pat myself on the back. It's not not for fame or fortune or anything. It's just to put the story out there so that maybe somebody can pick something up from it. And I lost track of that. I allowed that sneaky, dirty devil to come right in and get right in here and tell me that I'm not good enough. And the worst part about that is I believed it, because the devil is going to come at you all the time with these negative things. And I can tell you, it's in a book that I've read. I've mentioned it on the podcast in a previous episode. Don't Give the Enemy a Seat at Your Table by Louis Giglio. I think that's how you say his last name. I'm looking at the book like it's literally right down here on a shelf under my desk. And I've probably read it in some devotionals and stuff too. And the negative thoughts in your head, it pretty much says if it's not a good thought, it probably didn't come from God. And we have to grasp that and realize that. We just have to not let the devil win. And I let him win in this circumstance by believing that I wasn't good enough to do this and that I don't have anything to offer. When really I do. Everybody's got something to offer. Everybody can bring something to the table and make a difference. It's just about I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. I think everybody has something to offer. You can learn something, even if what not to do from anybody. So I do apologize, and I don't have a script for this. I'm just going to talk until I feel like I've covered everything. I'm still in my program. I currently finished step 4 and scheduled to do step 5 with my sponsor. Speaking of sponsor, got a new sponsor. He's great. He's awesome. He's a really good fit. He gets my humor. He gets my personality. He's ex-military. We got a lot in common. But I got step 5 scheduled with him next week. So step 4 and 5 will be done, and then move on to step 6. I'm not even sure what it is off the top of my head. So it's still making good progress in the program. At least my sponsor says I am, and other people in the program say I am, considering that I've only been in my program for a year, and I'm where I'm at. They say I'm making excellent progress, and I'm doing good. So I'll take their word for it, and I am very appreciative of their positive words of encouragement. I've had a lot of resentments that I've been trying to deal with. I lost track and let other things become more important. Things that I didn't necessarily swear off when my life turned upside down, but they were things that I knew I needed to moderate. And I did do that. And then, just like anybody else is susceptible to, when you promise to start making changes, I hit these changes hard and fast, just like I did with the podcast, and then I got comfortable, and then things started kind of creeping their way back in, and as my wife would say, like, it reminded her a lot of the old me, which is terrifying for her. And now looking back at it, of course, I didn't want to hear that, right? That's not what I wanted to hear. I got very defensive several times. We had several conversations about it. We ended up being very distant for, God, I don't know how long. And finally it slapped me in the face, and I was like, you know what? She's right. Not only am I reminding her of the old me, I'm reminding me of the old me, and that terrifies me. It should have terrified me when she first said it, but I'm stubborn. I'm a stubborn man. And so, I really had to do some soul searching there and just really praying and giving things back to God, and just really realizing, and there is one thing that I've realized, and I swore to this to begin with, but one thing that still stands true is I don't have this alone. I don't. None of it. Trying to be a better person, trying to be a better husband, trying to be a better father, trying to be a better influence and coworker and all that stuff. I don't have this alone. And by alone, I have my wife's support, so I'm not alone through any of this. I have my family's support. People who love me support me. So I'm not alone through any of this. But I mean alone in the sense of without God, without Jesus, right? And that's a huge part. Like, we have to, as a Christian, we have to be conscious of that. Things start going good and we get comfortable and we're like, okay. And as my pastor says, we say our little dabble do you prayers. We spend less time with God and more time doing things that shouldn't get in the way of spending time with God. But I mean, I'm guilty of it. Things do. Like, for instance, I like to do racing sim and flight sim on my computer. I mean, I've got the stuff. I mean, I'll just reach down here. Like, this is my wheel for sim racing, right? I've got flight sim controls. I've got all that stuff. And I started letting that become way more important than it should have been. I got back into streaming when I was doing my gaming, which is okay, but I was also focused on that way more than I should have been. And I finally realized that, right? Like I've just had this great epiphany. Like no wonder your wife has been distant and in protect herself mode because she fears that you're going back to the old you, and then she's terrified. And I get that, right? Like I get that. That's perfectly understandable now that I actually want to pay attention to it and don't want to get defensive about it. But I was holding on like I had a resentment there. I was resenting my wife. Meanwhile, my wife was resenting me. But I was resenting her because I felt like she was trying to control me, and she wasn't trying to control me. She was just trying to let me know, like, hey, you're slipping. You're going back to some of these old tendencies that you were doing when you were screwing up, when you were sleeping with other women, when you were seeing escorts, when you were inappropriately talking to other women. Like you're doing some of these things, and it just brings up all these. It's just very triggering for me, right? It was very triggering for my wife, and I failed her because I failed to be understanding, and I failed to listen. And it took me a good while to do that, to finally listen. And it's not because me and her had another conversation about it. It's because I finally took the time to just kind of sit and reflect and do some soul searching and some praying. And I realized just how big of a tailhole I was being about the situation, right? And so I then went from having resentments toward my wife to having resentments toward myself, because now I've let myself down. I let my wife down and I let myself down, and I've let other people around me down because there were other people that saw the same thing. Like my mom saw it. My mom lives an hour away, and she somehow knew. I don't know how my mom knows these things. My mom has a gift. My mom has a gift. There's just that's all I can say about it. But so and back on the topic, I'm kind of all over the place. Sorry, we're not scripted. I try not to script anyway, but I'm not scripted. I'm just talking. So, back on the topic of the podcast, Rebecca was like, "You started off strong on the podcast. The episodes are really good. What happened? Like, why haven't you done one?" And I was like, "I don't know," because I didn't want to tell her that I felt like I wasn't good enough, and who was I to be giving advice on a podcast? But it's really not about advice. Like, but the devil's in my head saying, "Zeth, you suck." So I was just like, I don't know. And it's been put on my heart for some time now to do another episode. I was just kind of scared to do it. And Rebecca said something again the other day. She was like, it's just, I think you should look back into your podcast stuff. And I was like, it's really been on my mind. I really want to do another episode. I'm just not sure what to do it about. And Rebecca was like, well, don't ignore that, because that's God. That's God telling you and speaking to you. And I think she was right. I mean, sometimes it's hard to listen for God. I mean, he doesn't just always come out to you and talk to you like a normal person does, right? So sometimes it's hard to listen for God and know what is God and what is you and what is the devil. And there's nothing easy about being a Christian. It's great. It's rewarding. And you start living your life by the Bible and by the Word, and things just somehow start getting better. Magic? No, it's not magic. That's called faith. But it's just funny how that works, right? Like you see people who like me, their life is upside down or was upside down, and then they give their life to God and they're on fire, right? They're on fire. They're in their Bible, they're reading devotionals, they're just spending a lot of time in prayer. And their life just kind of goes from here, let's use the water bottle for the analogy. Their life just kind of their life, English is hard, goes from upside down to right side up just that fast, right? It's not a gradual turn. No. When they're on fire, when someone is on fire for God, like someone who had to be pulled out of the lowest valley of their life, and the only way they got out of that was because of God, and they're on fire for God, they're on fire for Jesus, they're on fire for the Bible and Christianity, and then they're just hitting it hard, and their life just all of a sudden just is better, and then they get comfortable, right? So this is the gradual turn, right? So now we go from here, and we get comfortable, and we start creeping back in. We stop giving things to God as much and just kind of trying to do it on our own. And that leaves room for that devil, and that devil just starts creeping back in, right? Creeping back in, and our life just kind of starts turning, and it sits level for a little while, and everything's good. And then it just keeps slowly turning, and temptation starts happening, and then before we know it, we're back upside down again. And now, do I think I was headed down the same path where my life was going to be upside down and I was going to be doing the same stupid things that I did before? No, I do not think that I was going to be having affairs and sleeping with escorts and doing all that stuff. But I do think there were things coming in between me and God and my family that I should not have let be there. So I let myself down. I let my wife down. I let people who care about me down. And of course, I feel like I let God down. But He's a very gracious, merciful, loving Father. He'll forgive us. We have to repent and He'll forgive us. Well, I've just had that resentment. Some other resentments that I've had going on that I've been dealing with this one for a long time. There were a lot of people involved when I turned my life upside down. And there were a lot of different circumstances. And I hate that the whole truth only came out about me. Now, I can't control who else I can. I can tell the truth for someone else, but I don't feel like that's my place. So I just have the resentment that I hate that other people who were involved in this but are still being deceitful to everybody around them come out of this looking like a rose and smelling, smelling, a rose is pretty too, I guess. So smelling like a rose. And I come out of this looking like the terrible person who needs help, because people really only know the whole truth about my side of things because I decided to be honest. I decided that I had to be honest with everybody who deserved to know. And so I'm sure stories have gotten spun to fit whatever narrative somebody is trying to put together. And I'm just going to leave it at that. The people who know me that listen to this podcast will know exactly what I'm talking about. My wife will know exactly what I'm talking about. My brother-in-law will know exactly what I'm talking about. And if the person that I'm talking about happens to fall upon this podcast and listen to it, which I don't think that he would, but maybe, he would know that I'm talking about him. I'm pretty sure. And it's not that I'm being negative, because even though me and him don't talk anymore, I still love him and I'll do anything for him. If he needs me, he can call me. And I'm not putting him down because I've made my own mistakes. I'm not judging him. He can make mistakes too. Everybody makes mistakes. I mean, it happens. I guess there's just some jealousy there that other people get to still look pretty because they decide to be deceitful. And I look like a terrible person, and I was a terrible person. I'll take that back. My sponsor in my program tells me, you're not a terrible person. You've never been a terrible person. You're a great person who did terrible things. And I think that stands true. I think we can all relate to that. So I've been dealing with a lot of resentments. That last one I just mentioned was a big one, and still is a big one. And I've tried to practice acceptance and forgiveness. And I do forgive. I forgive this person. There's just still some resentment there, and there's still some bitterness every once in a while. So maybe I don't truly forgive. I'm trying to. It's not easy, though. I don't know how God does it. I don't know how God forgives each and every one of us that ask for forgiveness, because surely we don't deserve it. But then I'm like, okay, well, if God can forgive me, I can forgive this person. And if only it was that easy. But so I've really just been really bitter and really sour and unmotivated to get back up here and talk to y'all about the things that are going on in my life. And some good news though, we just found out that two friends really close to us are expecting children. They're pregnant. That's awesome. Completely unrelated people too, by the way, but they two friends really close to us are expecting. One couple, it's their second child, and the other couple is their first child. And this is so funny because these people never planned on having, the second couple never planned on having children. And I was talking to my buddy on the phone about it, and he was like, man, that just goes to show you that your plans and God's plans don't have to match up. But he said, I can promise you God's plans are going to win. There's a lot of truth in that. There's a lot of truth. You're not in control, and God's in control, whether you realize it or not. And you might think you're in control, but you ain't. But that's awesome. We're super excited for them. We're excited for both couples. We think it'll be great and pretty fun. So a little bit good news there. Where else have I been? I've been me and Rebecca both have been just really questioning things about our future, and not our future as our marriage, but our future as in, like, we want a bigger house, but now's a terrible time to buy a house. But we want a bigger house. We want another kid. We don't have room for another kid because we need a bigger house. And I guess, that's us being a little bit selfish. I think, I hear stories all the time about how these people grew up with 5 siblings in a 3-bedroom house, and, they all shared rooms and this, that, and the other. But I'm like, I don't want our kids to live that way. Like, I want our kids to have their own space. I don't expect our kids to have to share a room. But, excuse me. So we're just questioning these things, like, when is it going to be our time? Because neither one of us are getting any younger, and we wanted our kids to be relatively close together in age just so that they can be close growing up. I mean, I'll tell you, I love my sister, but we're 9 years apart. I'm at a completely different point in my life right now than she's at. And while I love her and I'll do anything to help her, we have very little in common. And so sometimes it's hard to relate to her. And we don't want that for our kids. I know Rebecca, growing up, her and her brother were pretty close in age. I think they were about 4 years apart, 4 or 5 years apart. And they're super close even to this day. They were always close, but even to this day, they're super close. And that's what we want for our kids. So we've just been questioning that, like, when is it going to be our time? When is it going to be our time? And we've talked about it, like, what are we going to do? And number one, we're not in control of that. That's not for us to decide. The good Lord's got it. We just got to trust in Him. And I'm about to get a promotion at work. Hopefully I'll be promoted no later than January of next year, 2025. And that comes with a pretty decent bump in pay, which will open things up for us financially, hopefully, to be able to move forward with some kind of either buying or building or something. So there's that. And then I've just really been, I guess, berating myself, just saying, and I feel like any man can relate to this, and any man who says he has never just questioned himself or berated himself on, are you a good person? Are you a good husband? Are you a good father? Are you a good Christian? That's a lie. And so I've really just been beating myself up on all of those questions. Like, what are you doing, man? Are you a good person? Are you a good father? Are you a good husband? And I feel like I could tell myself no for some of these things, which is scary. Have I been the husband that I should have been? No. Have I been the Christian that I should have been? No. Have I been the person that I should be? The answer to that's no as well, right? So, and then you just, like, for me, I get very disappointed in myself. Like, I've let myself down. And when I do that, that's one of the things. When I disappoint other people, I beat myself up and I feel pretty bad. But when I disappoint myself, that's just like a whole nother level. And so I've really been just allowing these negative thoughts from the devil to just really just take a foothold in my mind, and it's not healthy and it's not good, because you got to recognize those things and you got to cast them out. You got to give them to God, which is something that I failed to do. So that's where I'm at, and I want to get back into doing the podcast episodes. If you listen to the podcast on a regular basis, I owe you an apology for being gone for so long without releasing an episode, but now you know why. I told you from day one that I was going to come in here and be open and honest and real and vulnerable, and that's what I'm doing. I hope you can appreciate it. Like I said, if you pick up anything from this, maybe it's just what not to do. I'm not telling you what to do, and I'm really not telling you what not to do. But I feel like you listen to me talk long enough, you can learn some things that you probably shouldn't do. And that's just, I'm an imperfect human. So I got some big things coming up in life in general, some exciting things, some scary things. Like I said, you heard me earlier, I'm up for promotion. I should be promoted by hopefully January at the latest. I'll be promoted to the rank of captain with the fire department. So I'll be a supervisor. I'll be in charge of a truck, of a crew, which is a big step from where I'm at right now. So that comes with its own challenges and obstacles to overcome. But I'm also looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to a fresh start. I'm looking forward to get to put my own spin on things and hopefully just be a good leader and set good examples. I've worked for some pretty crappy supervisors and I learned stuff from them. I learned how not to be. So I hope that that's not the example that I set, what not to do and how not to be. But looking forward to that. Looking forward to more podcasts. And I think I remember after I did the last episode, I had been reading the book of Acts. Great book. And I was gonna do my next episode based off of that, kind of put my own spin on it and what I take out of it. One of the things that I take off of it that really relate to this podcast. So that's still coming up. That's something I still want to do, just because I think it's good stuff. But I'll have to kind of script that one a little bit, because I really got to make some stuff fit. But it'll be a good one. The thought's still up here. I remember it just plain as day. The thought's still up here. I just never acted on it because, that lousy devil telling me that I wasn't good enough, and who was I to give people advice? And I listened to the devil. Shame on me. I also have some anxieties about what is this economy in this country coming to. And I'm not talking about with the elections, Dad. I mean, I kind of am, but I'm kind of not. We're not going to talk about, I'm not getting into politics. I'm not playing that game. I don't care who you vote for. You need to vote for whoever you believe in, and you need to vote for their policies and what you think is right. You don't need to vote for somebody just because you don't like somebody else. You don't vote to beat a name. You vote because you feel like the person you are voting for is actually going to do the best for you and this country. I digress. So just a lot of anxieties there. Not necessarily with the election, but just where our country's at. Because going to the grocery store costs a lot of money now. A lot. Like I go to the grocery store and get groceries for one night to feed me, my wife, and my little girl, and have just a little bit of leftovers for the next day. And it might cost us $60 or $70. And we're not eating extravagant. I'm not going out buying filet mignon every single night and shy of eating hamburger helper every night, which we'll do it. It's just, things are crazy right now. Economically, things are crazy. I'll tell you what the world needs and what we all need: Jesus. I can promise you that. The politicians need Jesus. Everybody needs Jesus. And that shows just everywhere. That shows. I'm trying to think, is there anything else I want to put out there? I'm trying to think if I missed anything here. I thought this was going to be, I was thinking to myself, I got a lot of information for you. And then I was like, well, watch it only be like a 5-minute episode. But we've done pretty good. We're at, as far as the recording goes on the camera, we're at 37 minutes. If you listen to the podcast on your favorite podcast form, then it's probably not going to be 37 minutes because I go in and do some editing and get the dead air spaces out, long pauses, stuff like that, just to make it easier to listen to. So once again, I appreciate you checking out this most recent episode. I'm sorry that it has been so long since I've released one. I'm going to try to do better. And thank you for checking it out. Well, it's on YouTube, and it'll be the actual video of me talking, so go check that out. Like I said, I'm going to try to leave a link in the description to the YouTube video itself. But guys, just keep me in your thoughts, keep me in your prayers. I'm not going to say it's been a struggle, but things have just been difficult, and I finally realized that I'm to blame for a lot of that. So just keep me in your thoughts, keep me in your prayers, keep everybody in your prayers. Pray for each other, even the people that you think you cannot stand. Pray for them. I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'm Zeth Lee. This has been another episode of Manhood Unveiled. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. Of course, it means a lot to me because I'm hoping this develops into a community for men, by men. If you like the episode and you like the podcast, please feel free to subscribe and get notifications for when I do upload a new episode. And always feel free to drop a comment, and I'll try to respond to it. But until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you then.